Hi everyone, I'm Susan Mulvihill. Today's topic is dealing with weeds. And we all hate weeding, don't we? It's such an odious task. But it's so important that we keep up with them because weeds take away moisture and nutrients from the plants we're trying to grow on purpose. Now in my garden I don't use any chemicals at all. They're bad for the environment, they're really bad for pollinators, and they're bad for me. So I wanted to show you the different strategies I use in my garden, maybe to give you some ideas of how you can deal with weeds in your garden. In our vegetable garden, we have 26 raised beds. That is a lot of beds, and you'd think that would be a lot of weeding too. But actually, I can weed the entire garden in about an hour. How is that possible? Let me show you my secret. You'll notice that in our garden, in the pathways, we use a bark mulch, but what's hiding underneath is a landscape fabric, also called weed block. And this is what it looks like. It's very heavy duty, and it probably blocks 95% of the weeds from coming up. So that means the only place I have to weed in this garden is the tops of our raised beds. Here's another area where we used landscape fabric to cut down on weeding. You might recall from a previous video that I mentioned how we had a lawn back here, but it had a lot of problems with it. And it also was so much work to maintain. So we decided to remove the lawn, put in some island beds, and then put down a very heavy-duty nursery-grade landscape fabric and then a few inches of bark mulch on top. That has dramatically cut down on the amount of weeding that I need to do. One of the things I used to do to my raised beds is I would cultivate the surface of the soil frequently because I thought it made the bed look so pretty. Well, what that's doing is it's bringing up weed seeds to the surface where they can very easily germinate. Once I learned that, I stopped doing that altogether. Another strategy I use is plastic mulch for the beds that I grow warm season crops in. It's primarily to raise the soil temperature because that's what they prefer, but it's certainly a barrier so I have a minimal amount of weeds to pull. We all hate dandelions, right? And this year has been a banner year for them. Oh my gosh! As much as I would love a pristine lawn, I refuse to use weed and feed or other herbicides for 3 reasons. 1. The dandelions are an early source of pollen for bees when there's hardly anything blooming. 2. If I use weed and feed, I can't use the grass clippings in my compost pile or for mulch around my plants. That's because weed and feed is a broadleaf killer, and grasses are not broadleaves, but everything else is. And so if you think about the plants in your vegetable garden, everything but corn is a broadleaf plant. So if you put those around your plants, you're going to kill those plants. That's not good. Number 3, I just plain don't want to mess with chemicals. When you weed, make sure that you get all or as much of the root as possible and any runners so that there's less chance of them re-sprouting. I know this is tedious, but it will save you time in the long run. I've mentioned this in the past, but I'm going to mention it again. Mulch, mulch, mulch. When you place a few inches of mulch around the plants in your garden, not only will it help the soil keep its moisture, but also it will cut down on the amount of weeds that come up, which is fabulous. When I say mulch, I'm referring to things like grass clippings from a lawn that hasn't been treated with a herbicide, shredded leaves, straw, or anything along those lines. It makes a huge difference. One of the great things about planting perennials in your flower beds is that as they grow and become established, there's less soil around them for weed seeds to land on and germinate. And that's terrific. I hope all of these ideas have been helpful. Happy gardening!